I want to firstly apologize for starting this late because it's really now beyond anyone's control. All the members I think they just also joined. We had a long sitting. We thought we would be done by 7:30, but then it went beyond the scheduled time. We finished only at 8:30. Can you fly to the agenda, Llewellyn?
Good evening to you too, Chair.
You are only arriving now. We can see you. You are late. Members, you remember we had to ask specifically this meeting from the House Chair because we postponed the budget presentation of DPE last week on Tuesday. And we are supposed now to do that budget. We are supposed to adopt the minutes of last
recording in progress.
The other week's minutes. But then we've got a request of the postponement and improved organization of public hearings, which is proposed by Honorable Sukers. So here is the agenda. I am proposing that we start with the item of Honorable Sukers, if members do agree, and then we go to the a presentation by Honorable Zia.
Yes, good night, Chairperson. Good evening to the department officials, the minister, they are present, everybody else, honorable members. Chair, I want to second first and foremost your proposal that we begin with the request for postponement and improved organization on public hearings of public hearings on better bill by Honorable Sukers. So that becomes the item below the opening and welcome adoption of agenda and apologies. And then from there we then go to budget review. I would also like to propose that we move the consideration of outstanding draft minutes to the next meeting, considering that would have been done at 11. So it means if everything else remains as it is, that will be done at 12 because we're starting at 9 instead of 8. So I'm proposing we remove the consideration of minutes. We start, I second the proposal that we start with the request by Honorable Sukers, then we go to the budget review. Thank you very much. I move for the adoption of the new agenda if members don't have a problem with it. Thanks.
Good studio. Let me equally rise or start by greeting members in the portfolio committee, both fellow members and team DBE. I rise to support the formal move as proposed by Honorable Letsie. Indeed, that let's first address the issue of the postponement so that we operate going forward on one accord. And equally so, this issue of the minutes, given the time constraints, we all can see how late we are and we had a long day, be deferred to our next meeting. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Letsie and Honorable Morotsetla. Honorable Sukers, can I hand over to you?
Yes, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes.
Chair, with your permission, I will switch on my my video just for a few minutes. My internet connection is giving me an indication that it is not very strong. Would I be able to switch off the video, Chair? Yeah.
We can hear you clear, but if you prefer to switch it off, it's up to you, but we can now hear you clear.
Yeah, it is just that I am on a very low. I can see that I just have one line. So I will switch off the video and then proceed, perhaps, or yeah. Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And firstly, I want to say good evening to all the members and to the Department of Basic Education. It is late. However, I think we in the Basic Education Committee, we get energized very quickly. So I don't think you can expect for it not to be very robust. Chair, in terms of the item that I've put on the agenda, I want to bring to notice of the committee, as I came into this meeting, 3,189 members of the public had signed the petition requesting a postponement. They have emphasized the importance of a thorough and an inclusive approach, and the normal procedure for public hearings were not followed due to the short-staffed public education office, as we've heard in our meeting in Mpumalanga this weekend. This has led to insufficient communication and a lack of proper arrangement for suitable venues, and ultimately it affects the quality of the public participation process. I'm running through the letter that I've also sent to members and to yourself, just in terms of the points, Chair, that is important for us to consider. What we are asking is that the public hearings be postponed until after Easter, allowing for adequate time to address organizational challenges and to ensure a more inclusive consultation process. Secondly, that additional venues be added in provincial capitals and major cities like Potchefstroom, Bombela, to cater for a wider audience and to facilitate increased public participation. Three, that to choose venues based on expressed interest and major population centers, so to ensure that the selected locations are both accessible and relevant to the communities involved. And fourthly, Chair, to hold virtual public hearings, particularly for homeschoolers and other stakeholders who might face geographical or logistical barriers to attend in-person hearings. So in essence, asking for virtual public hearings as well. And then fourthly, provide clear and timely communication regarding hearing dates, times, and locations to allow interested parties to make necessary arrangements and to avoid confusion. Number 6, Chair, for us to consider the scheduling of the hearings to avoid conflicts with significant events such as your school holidays, your religious observances. In the Gauteng province in particular, hearings are scheduled on Palm Sunday weekend and during the school holidays, which may limit participation. And then lastly, Chair, that to acknowledge the efforts of people in KwaZulu-Natal who have been working to ensure there was no violence during today's protest action and have had little time to prepare for the hearings this coming weekend. There are also a number of areas that require attention. I asked last week that we get guidance and clarity on the appropriate constitutionally compliant processes and procedures for holding of these hearings and for public engagement. On the 28th of November, during the first meeting of this committee in 2017, my predecessor, Honorable Dudley, warned the committee then that unless we engage in a proper public engagement, we risk a repeat of the Doctors for Life case in which Parliament was sued for a failure to engage properly, and the bill was set aside and Parliament had to pay the legal cost. At that meeting, Honorable Machezi, who was then also serving on the committee, asked for the bill to be made available in indigenous African languages and engagement to take place in communities. That request was ignored until members of the public asked for this a few weeks ago during the hearings. This was neglected for over 4 years. And this is what happens when members are not listened to, but are ultimately proved right. And I think tonight, especially in the House, the issue around our responsibility in terms of effective oversight and the need for us to ensure that the democratic processes are followed is upon us as members. The DBE had over 4 years to engage with the public. We also now have the DBE wanting to clear up so-called misconceptions in the hearing. One of those is around abortion. But even this committee has not discussed this learner pregnancy policy. I've had the ATC checked, and it appears the DBE is in violation of Section 7 of the National Education Policy Act, as this policy was never tabled in Parliament. I would ask that the DBE investigate and that they report back to us. Even if the public representatives are not kept informed, if we are not kept informed as the law requires, how can we allow the DBE to try and clear up so-called misconceptions? And I'm referring now specifically to our hearings. The DBE cannot be allowed to do this. And I also want to address the issue of speakers at hearings not being allowed to make written submissions. When we limit a speaker to 3 minutes on a bill with dozens of clauses, we are limiting their rights. They must be allowed to make written submissions so that they can give their full views. And I want to suggest, Chair, that we have a desk outside at the hearings to receive written submissions rather than having to have people come into an overcrowded hall to submit. We need to consider virtual hearings. We have virtual sittings. Why can we not have virtual hearings? And we need to put all these technical matters to parliamentary legal services. I believe that we need time to do this. And it is another reason for us to postpone the hearings with immediate effect, starting with KwaZulu-Natal. I hope, Chair, and I do apologize that I don't have a presentation, but I'm certain all members has read the letter, which comprehensively deals with a lot of what I've said. And so I put it before consideration of the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sukers. Can I allow members of the committee to discuss, or rather give a way forward on what Honorable Sukers have raised? I'm seeing the hand of Honorable Litsia.
My hand is equally up, Chair, and I don't know.
Your hand is not up. Then it's gonna be you after Litsia, then Suela. Litsia.
I apologize, Chair. I was supposed to teach in Dadamurata how to raise his hand on the platform today. I apologize. I think it's my fault. Good evening to yourself. Good evening to everybody. Let's welcome the presentation from Mrs. Sukers. Appreciate that there are certain points that I think I agree with her. There are certain points that, Chair, I certainly do not agree with them. Maybe let me start with the points where we agree. One, I think given the problems that we had in Mpumalanga on Sunday, it was very clear, even from the briefing on Friday in Mpumalanga, that the Parliamentary Education Unit did not do their job, did not do their work. As things stand today, we're supposed to be leaving for KZN tomorrow to be starting public hearing in less than 36, 37 hours from now. And as of this morning, we had not been told about the venues. We do not know whether education would have happened there, noting that Monday and Tuesday was literally weekends. So I want to agree with her when she proposes that maybe let's get our house in order. Let's schedule a meeting next week, Chairperson, when we are meeting on Tuesday. Let's create space. Let's have a meeting with the parliamentary organization. I don't know who Mr. Bandi and the team. Inform them that we can't afford to have a situation where we go to a public hearing and our people have not been, mobilized. There's not been public education on the bill itself as Parliament requires. So I'm seconding her proposal that we postpone this week and next week so that we get our house in order. Whilst we are dealing with the Parliament's different divisions to assist us really on this day. I don't agree, Chair, that there are many things that would not have been done. For an example, when we're in Free State, in Kofi Fontaine, the chairs asked the legal department to clarify what is this, because somebody asked that what is this thing of culture? Unless Mrs. Sugar said, saying that we should not have clarified when a person asked about what is this thing called culture that we're talking about. So I don't think there was anything wrong as far as that is concerned. I can't remember what it was in Free State, where again the official, or it was in Northwest, I can't remember properly, but when an official of the department was asked to clarify, because it was very clear at the time from the submissions that people did not understand what we're doing. So it might very well be that the public education unit of Parliament did not necessarily do a good work there. So what then must happen? Are we then supposed to allow people to comment on something probably that they did not get education on, they did not get clarity on, or we then clarify it so that when they speak after that, they understand what is it that they're speaking on. And I think I supported that view. I'm still supporting it, that it was the correct thing to do. However, I do agree with Honorable Sugars that let's get our house in order. Let's have meetings with the Parliamentary Education Unit and the Public Participation Division, whatever they are called, for them to assist us here. With fix the issue of the PECs, because we have not, since we suggested last week, we have not received the feedback on whether they were coming all right or not. So let's get clarity on that part from them. Let's get the issue of them, the team, sending a team a week or two before to those venues. So it means venues must be confirmed 2 weeks before in order for the public education unit to go there. So that is where I would like to end, Chair. I think in terms of keeping the credibility of this bill intact, I want to second the view of my sister and my mother when we were in the bus, Mrs. Sukers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rasuela?
Hey, I thought it's my turn.
Good evening, Chairperson and honorable members, as well as officials of the department who are in the platform. Chairperson, firstly, I would like to concur with what Honorable Litsi has said in seconding the Honorable Sugar's proposal that this week's public hearings, as well as that of next week, be postponed. Given the experiences that we had in Mpumalanga, I do think that, honestly speaking, the Parliament did not do justice to the public hearing in Mpumalanga. There was no transport provided for people who came to the meeting, and also there was no public education that took place. And when we take all that into consideration, it is prudent that the request for the postponement be granted, so that Parliament and us must get our house in order. Secondly, Chairperson, I want to indicate that when people ask questions seeking clarity while we are on these public hearings, who is in the best position to provide that clarity? It is the department officials that are present, because this is their bill. It doesn't matter how we feel about it, but when people seek clarity, that clarity must be provided so that when they contribute from a position of knowing for the benefit of the whole process. Our responsibility as legislators is to make laws. And these laws are not for us, it is for the people as well. So it is important that that clarity is provided. And therefore, I do think it is right for the department officials who will be present in those meetings to provide clarity when such is sought by the members of the public. So I submit here.
Thank you. Principal?
Yeah, Chairperson, I think I was the third. I was the second, actually. But Principal can speak, it's okay.
Thank you, Baba Ngobo. Though I missed you in Parliament, I'm glad that I can hear your voice. It's a sign that you are still alive. Mudula Studio, I don't see us having to belabor deep into the points as raised by the submission from Honorable Speakers. There are actually two things here. Number one, and we must be able to draw the line. Number one, the letter from Honorable Speakers is proposing for postponement. Number two, the letter from Honorable Speakers comes with a lot of proposals apart from the postponement. It would be very dangerous. I listened to my two predecessors as they contributed. It will be very dangerous now to zoom into the second leg, because you see, though there was one who proposed that we need a meeting just to look into the organizational pattern from Parliament with regard to these public hearings. There is a lot which is in disarray. Having separated the two, let me go right away by saying I support the view that we have the postponement, given the experiences, especially from Mpumalanga, which even caused a confusion of venues to an extent that we had to postpone going into our third day. I support it. Was just one signal to show the confusion that we are experiencing. Number two, with regard to all those other points raised by the letter from Honorable Sukers, I would say, I would propose, Chair, that let that be a no-go area for now. Because if we start it, it means we will be provoking other people to start talking about them. Let's pack them. The day, if we agree about the meeting on the date that will be set, we will go to those points one by one, converge or agree to disagree, because I can see that we are likely to zoom into flouting some of the agreement already reached. You see, we cannot reinvent the wheel in the middle of the whole course and start doing things differently when we have already started at the back there. We have to be consistent. The only thing which must be done is let's put our house in order. And we can't put our house in order now. Start questioning what you call. We need a meeting where we will be able to brush all these things, and to an extent that when we are going to start with our public hearings, we shall be doing so knowing very well that we have cleared whatever confusion that be there. Maybe the last thing that I feel I must indicate is it possible that, Chair, the letter that was written by Honorable Sukers, of course, with the points, all those points that she might have raised, be accessible to all of us individually, so that we are able to see the total contents to prepare ourselves to the envisaged meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mapaloba.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. Mine is going to be brief now because of the inputs that have already been made. First of all, it's a fact now. It cannot be disputed that we experienced a number of problems of support in other areas not being properly organized, and as a result, we even had to cut our hearings short. The last ones, for instance, when we had to stop on Sunday. Now, about the postponement, I'm supporting that quite strongly because of that reason. Now, the Honorable Murasata is raising an issue of the other issues. Unfortunately, I haven't received that. I don't know what happened. I had the presentation, but I couldn't capture all the things that were raised. And therefore, in my supporting the postponement, I also want to continue and support that we fix a date, but not maybe next week. That would be my submission. Maybe we skip the next week and go to the other one. And find a date there where we could meet and maybe look even at these other issues. It would be unfair of me to simply dismiss everything when I have not done justice to that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. There's hand of no data in Fanzale, no data.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good evening to everyone. Chair, can I just check if I'm audible? I've got load shedding where I am.
Yes, you are.
All right, thanks. Chair, first of all, I want to indicate that there must be an investigation on what happened in Mpumalanga. As you may all be aware, I've written to the Chair of Chairs Cedric Froelich to do an investigation on what happened there. Because it cannot be that we've got a public education office that is understaffed at the expense of a constitutional obligation that we have to ensure that we conduct public participation hearings where communities are fully briefed about the law that is being proposed and the changes thereof. They're mobilized, and ultimately Parliament uses what we call taxpayers' money to get them to the venue. So it's important that we don't take this thing lightly. We're not postponing for the sake of postponing. But in postponing, we must get to the bottom of what went wrong. People must be held accountable for that. And if it means we must redo Mpumalanga entirely, we do that. Because that particular process was botched completely. It was left in the hands of committee in your office particularly, that completely failed to manage that particular process. And people did not come out and on their ordinary, they're not mobilized. And ultimately, it was a process that was tantamount to be captured, actually. So there must be an investigation, and that is my proposal as part of the resolution, that there must be an investigation on what happened in Mpumalanga. We're not going to postpone for the sake of postponing because it's convenient for some people, but we must postpone because we want to ensure that the public participation process is actually run in the manner in which can ensure our constitutional obligation is not compromised. And in actual fact, in Mpumalanga, that obligation was compromised. And I'm glad that some committee members today indicate that there must be a postponement. And I hope it's based on that principle and nothing else that may be putting them to a corner. Secondly, Chairperson, the reality is that we've run a process. We've opened up for written submissions. We've opened up for people to come and present to us orally in the committee, and they applied to do so. We're now embarking on a public participation process. The one thing I would agree with, part of the proposal from Honorable Sukers, because we were listening, we can't pick and choose what's on the letter and what is not on the letter based on our own convenience. We must engage the proposal as put, and when we resolve, we must resolve as such. One thing I will agree with is that we need to diversify the way we do the public participation process. And that is a consideration that we must make, and it must be part of the recommendation that we make as a resolution of this meeting, not some other meeting that's going to sit somewhere. Next week, unfortunately, is the last week that we're in Parliament. The next week, we've got the recess or constituency period. It means that we'll only come back to Parliament after Easter, after that particular period. So for postponing, we must bear in mind, we're postponing with that in mind, that there's Easter weekend then after, the constituency period, and ultimately, there's no way we can meet and conclude this thing next week because there wouldn't be enough time to investigate what happened in Mpumalanga to also ascertain whether the public education office has the capacity, have got the staff, have got the resources to ensure that the 5 remaining provinces are actually done properly. People are mobilized, they are educated on the bill, and ultimately, when we do decide on venues, which has been another biggest botch in this particular process, we must not identify venues because we like them or they are close to certain types of communities. We need to speak to all South Africans, not the ones that we think we like. So that particular public participation, public education office, those are the things that we need to investigate and get to the bottom of before we can even make a decision on where to from here. And next week is too early, unfortunately, Honorable Letsia, and I don't agree with that particular proposal that we must have a meeting next week to discuss these things, because ultimately we won't have a feedback. That particular office must come and present to us. There must be an investigation done on what happened in Mpumalanga, and ultimately they must get somebody to be held accountable for that. And then moving forward, we can be able to decide on how do we diversify venues. And those particular venues must not be chosen in pie in the sky. We are public representatives that are here, and we need to be able to know where exactly are we going and what informed that particular decision, so that we are able to engage South Africans in the constitutional manner that we're required to do so. So that is my proposal, Chair. And I request that that be minuted as such as part of the recommendation moving forward. And I'm looking forward to hear what resolution you're going to take after these engagements. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the other members on the call. as well as the department and the staff and also the stakeholders online. Chairperson, I have a concern which I need to raise here, and the concern is that I hope that the postponement of this weekend has nothing to do with the ANC Lekgotla that's coming up this weekend, and truly because of the flaws in the process that we experienced this far. So I think let us, like Honorable Nodada said, let us get our house in order for the public to be able to come out and raise their views about the Bella Bill. So yeah, in support of what Honorable Nodada said, is that the process of investigation must be thorough, and it must be for that reason and no other reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lago.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good evening to everyone in the platform, all protocol observed. Honorable Fansel, that what the statement that you just made, I don't know what is it informed by, because Honorable Sukers is the one who wrote and requested that for postponement. And you behave as if you're not in Mpumalanga, where we saw all these floods that we're raising here today. So don't bring your shenanigans here. Chairperson, I would agree with members that says, let there be postponement for this two coming public hearings in 2 provinces, so that we get our house in order. We said that from Sunday, she was there, that all these things must be corrected. And if it wasn't for what happened in Mpumalanga, everything was done right in Limpopo, Free State. There was those mistakes, but at least we managed to pull through. Northwest, everything went well. So it can be that the process was, flooded from the start. We saw the mistakes that we made, and we are saying, let's correct those mistakes. And then when we come back from recess, we continue with the public hearings. I'm sure by then your office chair will be in a space that can explain why some of the things happened. But we can't behave as if there was no good work that was done. A lot of good work was done. Whoever or whatever happened in Mpumalanga was an eye-opener, and we managed to actually arrest the situation by postponing 1 day that happened. And we make sure that we assured the members that of Health Sibande that we are going to come back only for that particular district. So I agree with members that says let's postpone so that you get your house in order. When other things that are raised by Honorable Sukers, I totally don't agree with them. She behaves as if she has never attended public hearings, or she has never been a process where they were, processing a bill. So, when things are tough, we must just get going. We belong to political parties. We'll also raise our issues here. So we don't want to go there. Let us continue the way the things are supposed to be done, not the way we want things to be done as individuals, because we all here as a collective, but we belong to different political parties. We also want to will also want to make sure that our mandate are prevailing. But let me, Chairperson, agree with the members that says let's postpone, because we did not want to postpone for anything. But what happened in Mpumalanga is the only thing and the only reason that would want us to make sure that we are not going to continue with the same mistakes, and more especially those very serious mistakes where community members were not informed, venues were not, even yourself, you were not even told which venues we are going to use. So it is important that you correct that, and then planning forward, you will get all the information from you. But I am of the view that let us postpone these two provinces, and come next term, second term, we start, we move. This bill is going to pass, whether we like it or not. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Fadeval.
Yeah, good evening, colleagues. Yeah, I just want to start off by saying, we are all politicians. That's quite correct. That's what your whip say. but it's really unnecessary to, in a way, attack colleagues because they have opinions. Our constitution, we had a lot about that today during Human Rights Day discussions or debates. We allows us the freedom of speech, and we have full right in a committee to give opinions. Whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant. So if people have a perception that this postponement could be, and I think it wasn't accused, it was merely a question raised, if I read the tone of the voice correctly, isn't it not? Because that's a question. So I don't think we must start attacking one another. At the end of the day, years ago, we all decided in this committee we are here for the greater cause. If we differ in the meantime, that's great. And you know, in Afrikaans, there's an old saying that says, die blinde sambok slaan seer. Now, I'm saying that because despite different motivation, not too long ago, the DA kindly requested a postponement to something that is of high importance to us. For example, the Gauteng Federal Congress, not a small manana little Congress, of our party, and we were also sort of, brushed aside. And those were a genuine, decent request. Now we're postponing with whatever motivation that happens in Mpumalanga. I wasn't there, but I got the report. Is, we sometimes don't want to, but we agree, and sometimes we want to, but we disagree. But I really think we should not come and really put this type of accusations towards one another if we really want to continue to work together. And so now we're going to want to postpone 2 provinces. So the extension of the whole process is getting much longer than was intended to. And I really want to say this, Chairperson, all of us, including you and your colleagues, we all have diaries. Some diaries are just fuller than others. And we all make adjustments in our diaries and sometimes have to send other people and give them opportunity to attend. But, we must really be considerate, and we must really not start with building bad attitudes amongst one another. It will defeat the purpose of taking correct decisions for the children and education in our country. So that is my plea. And I would actually say it would be nice if people apologize to one another because, we really stand for things and we stick by them, and we don't want to be drawn in this accusation phase. I don't think that is actually necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. My apologies for connecting a little later than anticipated. I am traveling, but I thought I should also come in, and I think how I would want to proceed is that the report of requests that have been submitted by Honorable Supers through a formal letter for a postponement till after Easter, being a point of reference. My view is that the mishap of the last leg of the Mpumalanga series of public hearings really set us back in the progress we were making. I wouldn't want to paint the whole provincial series of Mpumalanga as a failure, because I think all of us could agree that the first and the second leg went well. The third leg is what really sidetracked us and the pot of the rails. But I wouldn't want us to take the baby out with the bathwater. That's the first thing. The second thing, Chair, I think we have really built a good working relation as the various political parties in this portfolio committee. And there's a lot of camaraderie amongst us, and respect. And I wouldn't want us to venture into the space of contestation that is unnecessary, especially where it concerns the logistics as well as the modalities of the public hearings. I think all of us are in agreement that the public hearings must cover as wide an audience as possible. They must cover as a wider net of people as possible. And that Parliament should assist us with the function of mobilization, and that it should not be left to your office alone, Chair. And of course, as we have said in previous meetings, that it is almost impossible to curtail or to selectively allow certain sectors of society to come and make input on the bill or to stop them. Whoever takes their effort, their time, is mobilized in one or the other and comes, we should accept it for what it is. And I don't think it is correct for us to point fingers at each other around this party or that party is trying to dominate or overtake or collude. Or I don't think the right way to deal with each other. Before people are members of parties, they are first South Africans. And that's, I think, the view that we had taken in a previous meeting. So if people choose to come wearing certain colors, it doesn't mean that based on the colors, there is an intention. There's an intention to override, to overflow, or to take over the public hearings for a specific political party's agenda. I don't think that's the correct line of thinking, because we could go to a different place and you could have a higher turnout of a different political party's colors, and then what? Do we still say that there is an intention to take over, to control, to do this, to override? I don't think it's correct to use such terminology, especially for members of this portfolio committee. I would say let's keep the spirit. But I agree with Honorable van der Walt in her statement when she says we should keep the cordial relations going. We should not wade into waters that may seem to pit us against each other, because we've been working very well together. So I'm of the view that, Chair, the proposed postponements, as requested by Honorable Sukers through a formal letter, be given heed, and that will also give Parliament the opportunity to get their house in order, because I think as a portfolio committee, our house is very much in order. The challenges have been with those who are supposed to assist the process from Parliament. And I want to also second what was raised by Honorable Letia earlier on, that we accede to the request for the postponement and move as such. Thank you very much, Chair.
You are really traveling. But thanks very much to everybody. I have intentionally wanted all of you to speak, and all of you who have spoken. One, I think we have received the letter from Honorable Sukers, and I think many members are agreeing that we must postpone the meeting, which is what we are going to do. We are going to postpone both public hearings till we come back from the Easter weekend. And when we come back, the first meeting, we are going to sit down. Mr. Bandi, I have asked you to be part of this meeting so that you understand the feeling of the committee and how members are feeling by what has happened in Mpumalanga. At personal level, I think members are too hard on themselves. It's the first time we're doing public hearings as this committee. And it won't be fair to even go to an extent that our house is not in order. In fact, our house is very much in order. This committee is very much in order. What had happened in Mpumalanga, Mr. Bandi, I think I've raised it with you. I'm raising it again in the meeting. Parliament has failed us. And we are not going to put it nice. You have failed us in Mpumalanga. You did not organize mobilization for us. You did not organize transport for us. You did not organize a venue in Gertsebande that was proper for our portfolio committee to have a public hearing. And I want to put it very clear to you that this public hearing, you can't compare it with other portfolio committees. We probably are the second portfolio committee. In fact, that was ad hoc that was dealt with land. We are the only committee that has managed to bring about 1,400 people in one venue. So you can't compare us with other committees. The people that are coming to these committees, they are coming because they are coming to these public hearings. They are coming because of the interest that they have in this bill. So the issues that has happened in Mpumalanga, because in all other provinces, no one has came back and say our house is not in order. So what has happened in Mpumalanga, what makes members to raise the issues they are raising? And in fact, which I must say, even from the ACP, it's not that our house is not in order. They are raising it because they want to make their house in order, in my view. So we allow it. That's how fair we are in this committee, by the way. We allow people so that people should not say that we are raising things because of we want to run. And I want to state it very clear again that what has happened in Mpumalanga, we have made everybody to gather in one place and we took that decision collectively. Now, for a statement to say that the ANC is capturing these public hearings, I think it's wrong. And it must be raised here. We can't say the ANC is capturing this process. Where did the ANC capture this process? We've got photos of members who were having their political parties briefing them.
Point of order,
No, let me speak.
Point
Members
of order, Chair.
who made
Chairperson, there's rules. We're in a
Let's
meeting
raise
of
it.
Parliament. Point of order, Chair.
Let's raise it in the meeting because we can't run
Point
after.
of order, Chairperson.
We can't run after the media statements
Point of order.
that are made that are not correct.
Point of order, Chair.
I'm speaking
We're
with
in a
that.
meeting of Parliament. We're in a meeting of Parliament. The rules say we can raise a point of order. A point of order, Chair.
You can speak.
Chairperson, we're in a meeting of Parliament. We're members of Parliament. We can't be bringing things of hearsay from outside. We're here in a meeting of Parliament. You're the chair of the committee. You're supposed to direct with us based on the inputs of the members, not to divulge on issues that have nothing to do with the committee.
Are you done? Are you done? I don't know what a hearsay is. I'm talking about the statements that are on the public platform, which we decided not to respond to. Not that we do not have capacity, but we decided let us take an issue which is resolute, is raised in a meeting. So we are going to raise those issues. People must raise what has happened as facts, must not lie and want us to succumb to what they have written, which is not true. We have postponed because of what has happened in Mpumalanga, which all of us, we had agreed to that postponement. So I thought that we must put that very clear. And Mr. Bandi, I'm sure you understand where we are, where you have put at us, the crisis you have put at us, which makes members to want to blame one another. We have been cruising very nicely. We've done very well in Limpopo. We've done very well in Northwest. We've done very well in Free State. We've done very well in 2 districts in Mpumalanga. The last district was a problem, and a problem, by the way, which has been caused by the institution that has taken us on the ground. So a parliament has failed us, Mr. Bandi, and we are not going to continue. By next week, we are asking a deployment plan of who are these people that are going with us, because many people are getting into a flight, they are taking us to where we're supposed to be, but the next thing we get disorganization of what has happened in Mpumalanga. So we must get a deployment, who is there, who is with us. But secondly, we must get venues, because it is also not right that venues are coming from my office. Venues must be stated clear that we have asked you in Limpopo, for instance, we don't agree with certain venues. We have been told that venues are, it's parliament that uses venues that they normally use. So it's not our office that says where are the venues should be. So we want to know in all these 5 provinces, including Garisibande in Mpumalanga, where will be the venues, so that when members are converging, when we come back from Easter, we've got that deployment plan, but we also have venues for all members of committee to know when we start, where will be the venues, so that a mobilization is done based on the venues that we would have been given by yourselves. And I think you understand where we are. We are not happy, and we must state it very clear. We are not happy. Members were ready to go and do a public hearing on Sunday. We couldn't continue to do a public hearing because of something that has happened by a senior, but by a particular official from Parliament. And I wanted you to be in this meeting, Mr. Bandi, so that you understand where we are and you understand our dissatisfaction, and you are able to take us on the issues that we have raised moving forward. So with that, proceed with the meeting.
Chair, I've raised my hand.
I saw it.
My hand is also up, Chair.
Mr. Bandi?
Good evening, Chairperson, honorable members, colleagues, and both in Parliament and from the department. Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, I'm here talking as the face of Parliament. Chair, we have listened to the inputs, all the inputs from different members, and we have also listened to common issues that are raised by different members across political affiliations. One of the most common issues is the request to postponement, and we have noted with appreciation the request, and we'll go back to the drawing board to consider some of the issues that were raised. As I indicated right at the beginning, I'm only the face of Parliament as the project manager of the public hearings. There are different units. There are units that are affected in one way or another. So some of the issues that have been raised will be referred to those units. We have also noted that the main concerns are around what was experienced in Garisibande, the last public hearing in Mpumalanga. As reported, for the sake of the record, Chairperson, just to highlight once again that we had reported before the public hearings that the Public Education Office and the Parliamentary Democratic Office were unable to deploy staff to the public hearings in Mpumalanga due to human resource capacity constraints. This was the main issue, particularly in the context of the number of public hearings taking place at the same time in Parliament. So we would like to urge members not to lose sight of the the main issue as we proceed trying to come up with solutions. But having said that, we have noted a whole range of other issues that have been raised. Obviously, we'll try to address them in preparation to the remaining public hearings in other provinces. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Members, I am requesting that we start with the presentation. I see your hands, they are getting more and more. And we are going to come back to these issues after the presentation. There are many people now here who wants to present. I think we managed to go through that we postpone the public hearings in KZN and Gauteng.
Chairperson, can I just say something?
No, Principal. Can we please lower our hands? Please. Can we all lower our hands? Yabo, Moratsetla Sukers and noted. My NG. Chair. Are you sleeping, Minister? Should not have a network.
Yeah, her network is a bit terrible, but she is in the meeting.
Did you want us to start with our party?
Let's start with you, Ma.
Yeah, my signal is very low, but I'm in the meeting. Okay, Chair, let me really again thank you very much last week for allowing us to return today. So because it's late, I don't think I should start, and there is quite a number of things. I will ask UDG to lead his team, and then we'll await your responses. Actually, my signal is very low. I only have 2 bars. So it's very poor where I am. So DG, can I ask you to lead the team?
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Honorable Deputy Minister and colleagues. Minister will go straight and cut it to the chase. The presentation has got 2 parts. Part A is going to be presented by Ms. Mbonambe. The second part will be presented by Mr. Kuno. First part is about overview, background, and then including the indicators planned for 2023, 2024. And then the second part deals with the budget, which will be handled by the CFO. Ms. Mbonambe, please, let's go straight forward into the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Good evening, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Minister, DM, DG, and Senior Management. As already indicated, I'll be taking you through the 2020-21, 2024-25 strategic plan, as well as the 2023 annual performance plan. In terms of the presentation outline, we'll be looking at the purpose, which is partly covered, size and shape of the basic education sector, background with all the government and sector priorities, then the plans towards long-term outcomes, and then I will hand over to CFO to present the budget. So we've already indicated in terms of the plan and the budget, and this is the size of the shape. I'm only going through the totals. In the learners in the sector, 13.4 million. and the educators, 447,123, and the schools, 24,894. In terms of the background, just to emphasize in terms of the plans and that have been taken into consideration in developing this annual performance plan, national development plan being the country plan to eradicate poverty and to reduce poverty and to eradicate inequalities. The medium-term strategic framework 2019 to 2024, as well as the action plan to 2024, which is the sector plan. And I'll go into the last bullet, which is about this APP being representing the 4th year of activities towards achieving the objectives in the STRAT plan. This slide takes us through how the sector plan relates to other plans, such as sustainable development goals, as well as other reports. But still, the National Development Plan is still the key plan for the country. Then we have MTSF, and the sector plan also draws from both NDP and MTSF. Then the 5-year plans for the DBE and PEDs, as well as the annual performance plans for both DBE and the PEDs. And also the APP uses, or the department rather uses, the theory of change in terms of how it can influence outcomes through its functions of developing policy, monitoring, and oversight. And that is as per NEPA. These are the government priorities, 7. And as education sector, we are leading in priority 3, which is education, skills, and health. However, we contribute to all other priorities. In terms of the action plan, I will also try to summarize. There are 27 goals, which are divided in 2 parts, goals 1 to 13 on the improved learning outcomes, and goals 14 to 27 on how to improve the learning outcomes. In terms of the medium-term strategic framework, these are the education outcomes. There's 5 of them, of which also we just reminding ourselves of. They are not new. They have been there since 2019, 2024. These slides 13 to 15, the slides reflecting on the link between the outputs, or DBE outputs, rather the DBE outcomes, which are in the strategic plan of the sector or of the department, and also the medium-term strategic framework outcomes. So it shows the link between these 3, that the APP is not developed in isolation. So it's the 3 slides that we spoke about. And we move to the priorities, sector priorities for the 6th administration, as approved by the Council of Education Ministers in 2019. We can reflect on the foundational skills, which are underpinned by reading revolution. The second one being the implementation of curriculum with skills and competencies for a changing world in all public schools. Third one being quality and efficiency through implementation of standardized assessments. Then 4th, 2 years of ECD before grade 1 and the migration of 0 to 4-year-olds. 5, infrastructure development plan. Then 6, we talked to collaboration with other departments, such as Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Health, and SAPS. to teach and promote social cohesion, health, and school safety. When we reflect on the SONA, starting with 2023, mostly focusing on early childhood development, it's talking to provision of a foundation to read for meaning, learn and develop. Talks to the increase of ECD subsidy to reach more children. And it talks to streamlining the requirements for ECD centers to access support and subsidies. So the right column is the progress that has been made, because these are not new priorities. However, the department has to focus, or the sector rather, has to focus on this, but work is already happening in this area. And this one is reflecting on the 3 streams model to provide skills for the 21st century skills. This is just to highlight that the department also tracks the previous SONAs, 2020, 2021, 2022, on reading, inclusive education, infrastructure, and so forth. And in the upcoming slides, we're looking at progress on selected key deliverables, starting with the infrastructure. In appropriate structure, I will go to the last column, which is the performance up to 6 March. In terms of inappropriate structure by 6 March, 315 schools had been completed. Water supply, 1259, which is 1,259 schools had been supplied with a water supply. Sanitation, 1,053, electricity supply, 373, and fencing 4. In the next few slides, it's just also to recapture from the National Senior Certificate, because these are forming part of the situational analysis in the 2023-24 annual performance plan. But I do understand that NSC was presented to the committee, and so it's just to touch on that. So this one is looking at the percentage passes, and these are the bachelor passes from 2014 to 2022. And in this slide, we are reflecting on the passes by the learners with special needs education. Out of 1,092 who wrote, 893 passed, but at different levels. Bachelor's 439, diploma 264, higher certificate 108, and endorsed is 82. This slide is on workbook delivery of the workbooks. We're sitting at 99.8 workbooks delivered to 99.88 schools. That was 13th January. However, I did a follow-up after that, and the unit responsible confirmed that the delivery was at 100%. And this slide is on Funza Lushaka placements, because the placements, we track them per academic year. So this would be from January to December 2022. So the placement was at 68%. For if we include all the provinces, or combining all the provinces. National School Nutrition Program, I will also look at the total. These are all provinces, but the last column on the extreme right, total, it's 9,689,300 learners that were provided with meals. In terms of the process, the APP is submitted rather to oversight structures, also DPME, Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Auditor General South Africa, and they provide comments. We did receive these recommendations in terms of providing more reflection on budget prioritization framework, strengthening the information provided in the explanation for planned performance over the planning period, strengthening the technical indicator descriptions, which is also the same as from AGSA, but also department to focus less on reports and provide emphasis on what needs to be done, as well as providing emphasis on program design towards learning and instruction. So all these actions and responses were provided to all the findings. These are the areas for strengthening in our APP. As much as we have developed and tabled APP, we realize the need to put more emphasis on these areas: accountability system, teacher development such as professional learning communities, strengthen numeracy, reading, and ECD indicators, which are linked to outcomes in classrooms, sector monitoring in terms of standardized output indicators. So this is a continuation of the areas also for strengthening. As indicated earlier, that the APP is the implementation of the 5-year strat plan, and the current APP being presented is in the 4th year of the implementation. These are the strategic plan indicators, baseline, and 5-year targets, which have not changed. So that is why I will not also present them one by one. I will move straight into the APP. This slide provides the summary of the indicators. There is a total of 69 indicators on the APP, 58 being annual targets, 9 quarterly targets, 1 biannual, and 1 biennial. The last 2 columns are the branch names and the number of indicators per branch. The next 2 slides reflecting on the changes in the targets where we had major changes. For instance, for second chance indicator, the targets have increased from 60 to 80, and in the outer year, they have increased from 70,000 to 100,000. Implementation of ICRA, the targets have doubled from 18 to 36, and the ACD for new schools, because the ACD implementation was supposed to end at national, the allocation, the infrastructure backlogs grant, the agreement with National Treasury was that it would be moved to the provincial education departments. However, to address the pressing needs in terms of the classrooms, then the allocation is kept at national. So we initially didn't have the targets and then had to include the targets after National Treasury had allocated the budget for that. So these are the targets: new schools, 9 for the 2023-24, then 20 and 12 and 20 for the outer years. The provision of sanitation, 350 for 23-24, and then 400 and 450 for the outer years. Water, it's 1, and then in the 2023-24, 30 and 40 in the outer years. The next 2 indicators are on the National School Safety Framework. Also, the targets has been adjusted, as well as on gender, school-related gender-based violence. The targets have been increased, looking at the seriousness also of the gender-based violence in the country. This slide summarizes the indicators where amendments were made in terms of the wording, but also for ECD, we had to have an indicator 2.1.6 on monitoring the registration of ECD programs. 4.3.5, which is the last indicator, has been removed. It's been in the 2022-23 annual performance plan. However, to refocus the indicator, it has been removed and will be included in the 25 APP. Honorable members and our chair, if you allow me, I will also not go through indicator by indicator. I've summarized and I've highlighted the main changes in terms of the targets and also in terms of the wording of the indicators. It's just to highlight that where the yellow highlight, it means there are changes which we have covered in the 2 slides above. With your permission, Chair, I think I will stop there and hand over to CFO. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonambi. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members of the Portfolio Committee, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and colleagues. Can we go to the next slide? Chair, although we're concentrating on the 23-24 year and the 2 outer years, we've also shown the current financial year as well as the variances between year on year so that we can give context. At the bottom of that slide, Chair, we're just showing that the budget for 23-24 of 31.7 million represent a 7% increase on the budget of the current financial year of 29.6 million. And if we go program by program, administration has reduced by 5%. Program 2 has increased by 7%. Program 3 there's no increase. Program 4 has increased by 7%, and program 5 has increased by 8%. But as I said, the overall increase is 7% from 2022-23 to 2023-24, by 4% in the second year, and by 5% in the outer year. Next slide, please. Then this slide shows the same budget, except that whereas the first slide was on per program, this one is per economic classification. Compensation of employees has decreased by 1%. Goods and services increased by 9%. Interest and rent on land decreased by 7%. Transfers and subsidies has increased by 8%. Payments of capital assets has increased by 19%. And there's a 0 increase on payments of financial assets. This one we budget within the department because it's a very minuscule amount. The total is the same as on the previous page, where the increases is 7% on the first year, 4% on the second year, and 5% on the outer year. Next slide, please. Then when we go through the breakdown of the budget, basically, the budget is made up of 30,3388, which is the total, the indicative allocation, which is made up of a departmental baseline of 6.2 billion plus conditional grants of 24.1 billion. And below that 24.1 billion is all the conditional grants that make up that 24.1 billion. And if we go to the next page, or next slide, yes, that 241 is the last conditional grants that comes into that 2.24 billion. Then we are shown the baseline increases. Basically what this means, Chair, is where Treasury is showing us where the increases have been. What is not shown here is where there are no increases, they won't show us, or where there are no reductions, they won't show us, but it doesn't mean that these are not in the budget. For example, compensation of employees, there has been an increase of 16.4 million in the 2023-2024 year. Last year, the increase was 11.1 million, and these increases are mainly because of the salary increases that happened during the year. And then building and other assets fixed structures, there's an increase of 1.7 million. And for goods and services, there's an increase of 204 million. Then when you go when you go to the next ones, because it gets a bit interesting. Last year, for example, we had an increase of 20 million over the 3 years. Sorry, go back, just go back to that. Yeah, we had an increase of 20 million over 3 years on Umalusi. So this year that increase is included in the budget. So that's why it's not shown. It was shown last year because it's only last year that it was an increase. The same applies to the 836 thousand that was for foreign government and international organizations are there. There was an increase of 836 baseline increase. This year, there's no baseline increase, although there is a budget for this. The same applies to the ECD function that I say it was the first time that it was coming in. So that's why it was an increase last year. This year, it's not, there's no increase in this item. The same applies to stimulus, presidential employment stimulus oversight of 5 million. We can go to the next slide. Yes, these two are also the same. There were increases of 826 and 2130 for ECD function, South African Congress for Early Childhood Development, as well as UHAMBO, because these were new allocations. That's why last year they were shown under increased baseline. Next slide. And then there are also baseline reductions, whereas those are increases, these are reductions. There's a reduction of 4.525 on interest and rent on land, and there's also a reduction of 1.2 million on machinery and equipment. Last year we had a reduction of departmental agencies and accounts of 3 million, goods and services of 24.4 million, and Funza Leshaka of 26.1 million. This year, we don't have those baseline reductions. We can go to the next slide. Then we've got what the Treasury calls adjustments to conditional grants. ECD, there's no adjustment in the current year, whereas last year there was an adjustment of 764 million. I'm sorry, thousand. And the EIG this year, there's an adjustment or increase of 773 million, whereas last year there was an increase of 154 million. Learners with profound intellectual disability grant, there's an increase of 400 million this year, which is almost 100% jump. And last year, whereas we had an increase of 6 million and 265,000 on MST and HIV and AIDS, this year we don't have those increases. Next slide. So Chairperson, the total budget, as we've shown in the previous slides, all those increases, budget increase, baseline reductions, conditional grants, all of that comes back to the same budget that we shown under economic classification and under program of a 7% increase from 2022-23 to 2023-24, and 4% and 5% in the outer years, respectively. Next slide. This one, Chair, it's earmarked funds. All these, Chair, are included in the slides that I've shown. So I wouldn't go into details on these ones. It's just more detail as to what we've got in the budget, but they are included in the slides that I've shown, Chair. Next slide. And it would be the same in this slide. Next slide. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Rekuno. and Ms. Mbonambe. Over to you, Minister. Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members.
No, Chair, let me hand over back to the Chair. We don't have anything more to say. Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Minister, DM and DG and the team. Members, that's the budget presentation of DBE 2023-24. Can I note hands? Or are we fine? Should I close? At the end of Sukers? Over to you, Sukers.
Yeah, Chair. Chair, with your permission, I will keep my video off. I have a few questions. I'm going to leave my comments out. But I think what I'm going to say is going to be a repeat of what I've said before. The strategic plan and the annual performance plan and the budget are fundamentally flawed, as what is described as outputs in the APPU are really inputs. And I've made this description or this comment before, that we don't really know the impact of the programs of departments. And I sit on 3 committees, and I've seen this over and over in presentations. What we get is we get the inputs, but we never know how effective the programs are. I'm going to take an example of comprehensive sexuality education, CSE, as an example. The output is 8,798 educators were trained on CSE. 5,154 members of the SMTs orientated on the CSE. 3,135 learner support agents placed in schools. 218,370 CSE learning and teaching support material printed and distributed. We don't know, however, what is the impact. The only research study undertaken on behalf of the DBE, the final report on the impact evaluation of a school-based sexuality and HIV prevention education activity in South Africa, it comes to this conclusion, Chair. I'm going to read open quote. It says, although few outcomes from this study demonstrate that the revised SLP life orientation program had a positive impact on HIV prevention and related behaviors, incidents within the 2-year study period and HIV prevalence among the cross-section of grade 10 girls point to the need for effective HIV prevention programs among youth, close quote. So if we translate that, your own research into plain English, CSE does not work. But the situation is so serious, we don't know what else to do, in fact. And that is just one of the cases where the DBE has actually got research and the effectiveness of their activities. What is equally troubling, Chair, is how this committee had to struggle to get that research report. My first question, what is the impact this program is supposed to have? How many pregnancies is it supposed to prevent? If the DBE can commit to a goal or a number, then we can measure you against that. But we cannot have where we bury the failures by doing nothing to reduce the number of pregnancies, but we create work for health by being an abortion conduit. Secondly, research. When we last discussed this, the Deputy Minister pointed out that impacts in the basic education sector can have a lag. This lag can be addressed using a threefold research approach. All programs include a built-in research component. You can include that while being delivered. Research can be conducted by independent academics into impact of key programs over a 2 to 3 year period, and longitudinal cohort studies that track a representative sample of learners over their lifetime to measure impact. If we wish to see if ECD has an impact, we need to, for example, have this kind of study start now. And this is what included an email with my This was included in an email with my unanswered questions. So you maybe haven't read this, so we must make it practical. My whole point, Chair, and I know it's very late for many people, but we are busy with the department's annual report and we have to engage it. So please do excuse me, but I have prepared questions and I've prepared comments on it. And so I would like the opportunity to speak on it. What we know is that CSE has failed as a program. So we can allocate that budget elsewhere, I believe. I suggest that we send it to the National School Nutrition Program. Nearly 9 billion rand, 33% of your allocation. It is referred to 4 times in 77 slides. It doesn't even get its own slide. What research are we doing on the impact of the scheme? The chair mentioned last week, and I share that concern, Chair, and you did right, last week about nutrition in the Northern Cape. We are sitting with a huge problem in the Northern Cape when it comes to nutrition, and specifically with children. So what research are we doing there? Chair, I can go on and on the issues of research, but we need reports. We need monitoring and we need reports. For instance, with the school nutrition program, you do monitoring, but you look at 3 food groups on a plate, not scientific measurements of the nutritional elements. And I really want to say to the committee, we actually have a report that one of the members of the opposition brought during the social development debate. I don't know if members can remember, I think it was Honorable Bridget Masango who spoke on stunting and the impact that it has on children. So when I bring this up, not bringing it up for any other reason, that we desperately need to have research for the programs and for the amount of money that we put in. We need to understand what the impact of it is in order for us to do proper oversight on these programs. My second question, one of your core functions is the development of laws, policies, regulations, and frameworks. Can you please provide a simple summary of which of these are under development, at what stage they are, and what the next milestone is, and the goal for 2023-2024? The APP is not clear on that. And then, Chair, I have sent a number of questions to DBE. I never received an answer. I sent a long list of questions on the basis of the presentations that we have received. And it is my assessment with departments, we are really suffering death by PowerPoint, seriously. It is very difficult for us to do oversight on a department, listen to a presentation. We do a tick box exercise, but we are unable to really effectively gauge what is the impact on the ground. We do see it though. We see the impact. When you're in the Northern Cape, we see the impact. As jy in die Karoo is, jy sien die impact daar. It is for me really very, very strange, Chair. For instance, I will give the example of the school closures and the school mergers mentioned in the presentation, but not once mentioned in the report, not once. If I'm in business, and I come from business, if I'm a director, official, and executive, you would never allow any branch to be closed without a report on it. So can my questions about schools being closed and planned to be closed please be answered? And it is part of the list of questions that I have submitted to the DBE. And then I want to move to school governing bodies. Despite controlling billions in expenditure, they are mentioned twice in the presentation and 10 times in the report. Most of those titles were with no content, but these partners do get 185-word paragraph. And then there's something strange that maybe that can be explained. In slide 56, the target for percentage that meet minimum criteria is 90% in 23-24. 50% in 24-25, and 70% in 25 and 26. If the DBE can just give us clarity on that. Then I also want to know, what are we spending on training school governing bodies? Chair, we have heard many comments during the provincial public hearings now. Will the minister commit to providing stipends for SGB members in quintile 1 to 3 schools? And for the sake, Chair, of the time, I can take everything that I have said here and again resubmit the questions to the DBE. But I really am concerned, Chair, that what we get is information. We actually don't get impact at all, not really. The issue around CSE, the point with homeschoolers is not so much the issue with the number of homeschoolers. The flaws are the ones that can be easily detected on the dashboard with 100. What we need really is like a dashboard so that we see where we are. And Chair, I think just for the sake of time, I'm going to resubmit the questions because I'm aware of the time. And if the DBE can commit to please provide us with accurate, truthful, regular reporting and answers on the questions that I have already submitted. Most of those questions I don't want to repeat here, but I didn't get an answer of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Van Zyl.
Thank you, Chairperson. As normal, I will talk to slides specific. I'm going to start on slide 27, where it talks about the Funja Lushaka placements. It indicates there that there's 4,348 graduates, only 2,954 were placed, which means that 1,394 are still unplaced. This essentially classes them as unemployed graduates. And with a shortage of quality educators, and I mean, even in whole educators at school, what is the department going to do to place these graduates? Because when we were on oversight in KZN at Dingeka High School, we heard that there were sometimes up to 80 learners in one class because there's a shortage of teachers. So, I mean, that is very worrying. Then I want to talk about slide 45, and it links with slide 59, where it talked about the number of new schools built, provided with sanitation facilities and water facilities. Now, the minister said that we need to, with rush, actually start building schools. But on this, it shows that there's only 9 schools that will be built in the next financial year. It also says that there is sanitation of 350. Does that then mean that there's 350 pit latrines going to be sorted out, or does that mean 350 schools will get sanitation? What is the details on that? Because it just says provided with sanitation facilities. Does that mean we're going to put in VIPs or pit latrines in those 350, or is there going to be flush toilets? And then obviously the water facilities, there's only 1. Again, what's the detail? Does it mean that there's going to be a borehole, or I mean, what? We need more details than what is placed on this. Then quickly, just still on the budget, talking to learner transport. I think it remains one of the biggest concerns where children as little as we heard in KZN as 6 years old need to walk or hike more than 5 kilometers to school, and then another 5 kilometers home. We also heard that the provincial learner transport qualification in KZN is 3 kilometers, where nationally it's at 5 kilometers. So there's definitely a deficit where the learner transport the budget doesn't fall completely with the Department of Basic Education. And I think it needs to be owned, and it needs to lie within the basic education, because it is our children, it is our issue. It falls under us. We know that there's only 4 provinces, Gauteng, Limpopo, Eastern Cape and Western Cape, in the provinces where it lies with the Department of Education. And KZN is like it lies with the Department of Transport. So these are things that's untouchable by Department of Education because it lies with Department of Transport. So maybe going forward, there needs to be a joint meeting and a relook at that 2015 policy that said it goes with transport. Then just quickly on a side note, where's the budget that talks to the Centers for Great R's if this Bella building succeeds? Infrastructure will obviously be needed if in line with the bill. So is the department ready for that eventuality? Are we going to have Grade R classrooms at each and every school? Because I don't see that there's any infrastructure grant that talks to that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Noted.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, I may take a bit of a while. I'm just giving a heads up because I've got quite a few questions on this. And as you may know, it's quite a lengthy document to go through. And I'm going to request, Chair, that I do a follow-up questions in writing. I will send them to Llewellyn, and he can forward them to the department as well to get a comprehensive response on some of these things, so that I fully understand the contents and what is being proposed based on the budget and the targets that are being set. So, Chair, I'm going to start with, I think maybe Honorable Van Zyl may have covered some of them. But I wanted to check from the CFO as to what percentage of the budget has specifically been assigned for teacher development outside of SACE. So SACE is an entity that registers teachers. They've got their own programs for professional development. But what budget aside of that particular entity has been assigned or put aside for the professional development of teachers? That's point number one. Part of that question is, what will the development in itself entail, if there's any programs that are put outside of SACE that have been budgeted for? Do we have an idea on what will they entail, considering that we've got our teachers performing at the low 40s and low 30s in the subjects that they teach in terms of international benchmark or international tests, particularly for maths, languages, and other areas? And then the last part of that question, if there is a program that has been put aside and there is a budget that is allocated to that program, can we then identify as to, do we have a number of teachers in each province that we have identified that we want to professionally develop in areas that may be identified by the department? And lastly, if there is such a program, there are teachers identified, there's a budget allocated to that, how will that particular professional development program be monitored? Are we going to get, is it part of your targets for the 4 quarters of the year? And are we going to get updates on that? So that's the first part around the professional development of teachers. And I think you may know where the question comes from. And I don't want to dwell on things that I've said in the past in previous meetings. The DG would be aware. The second part is that the Honorable Van Zyl has partly asked this question, that around ECDs, considering that there's been a challenge in terms of the registration of early childhood development centers, and these particular centers cater for children in grade R, grade RR, and below. How is the department planning as part of its targets in assisting these ECDs with the registration, given that roughly about 40% of ECDs are currently registered at the moment? Is there a particular strategy around this? Is it part and parcel of the targets that have been set? And how is the department intending to ensure that we get the bulk of those that are not registered to register and offer the necessary support that they need to offer, even in professionally developing those practitioners that are in the ECD centers? The third question, Chair, is, in how many schools or centers are the new ECD funding method being piloted? Because there's an indication that there's a funding method that is being piloted. And, if we can get information as to which of these schools, centers, and in which province are they in, and what mechanism was used to identify these particular ECD centers and schools that have been funded through the pilot. And it becomes very important to link the ECD question on the fact that you find that there are independent ECDs, and we then factor in the department's urgent implementation of the mandatory grade R and grade RR and grade R that has been proposed. How are these independent ECDs factored in? as part of the plan of the department to urgently implement, a mandatory grade R program, considering that we've got a challenge of infrastructure in schools. National Treasury has indicated that it's going to cost us a certain amount of billions to roll out a full program of making grade R compulsory. There's currently now a pilot, as I've asked in my previous question, on this ECD issue. With those independent ECDs that do exist that can offer the service, are they factored into the department's urgent implementation of the mandatory grade R? Is there a plan behind it? Are we going to finance it in some way to alleviate the pressure to take on children into those private or independent ECDs? If we can just give an update on that particular one. And if not, I think it's an area that we need to kind of look at as part of the department's plans and targets as to, look, we may not necessarily have all the funds to roll out a full-blown program to make grade R compulsory, but how do we then integrate or factor in the independent ECDs and put together a funding model that's going to alleviate the pressure on public schooling to ensure that at least parents comply with what is proposed in legislation and making sure that their children compulsory attend grade R at a particular age. So I'd be interested in that particular area specifically. That is one, that is the second area after the professional development of teachers that I would be interested in terms of what the department plans to do. The next question is, when will 0 to 4 years be fully migrated from the Department of Social Development to basic education? And if I know there was a handover in the previous year, but there still remains some functions that are with social development, considering that they also the custodians of the Children's Act. So when will the 0 to 4 years be fully migrated to DBE from the Department of Social Development, so that we can ensure that the cultivation of a foundation phase for our children is done fully by the basic education department, so that we know how to measure the result and the outcome in the end. Moving on to the next segment, and this one is around infrastructure. Given that there's 27-month delay on infrastructure projects, roughly, which is according to the PFMA report in 2021-22, what is the department going to do as part of its plans, set targets, budgeting, to ensure that money budgeted for infrastructure maintenance and development is better spent and that projects are delivered on time? Now, 27 months is a very long delay. In some instances, it's even longer than the 27 month, and there may be various different factors in different places, but it's inexcusable because we know we've got a very big challenge of backlogs on infrastructure, on variety of things. Now, a 27-month delay on average is already taking us back a long while. And I'm going to cite an example. For example, in the Western Cape, there's a school that was built in 65 days. 65 days through, a rapid school build program. And it was very successful. Now, if you delay a project for 27 months, it means that half of that school that was built in the Western Cape would have been, half done by then with that delay. Times two that the school is complete. And right now we're sitting with that major problem. We've got a red tape issue. So part of the department's plans and targets, when they allocate an infrastructure grant to the different provinces, or even part of its own programs of, say, for CD that have now been extended, what mechanisms are we putting in place to ensure that we deal with the 27-month delay, one, as a turnaround time, and two, that money that is spent on infrastructure is actually done efficiently, so that we don't pay extra for 27 months on a project that could have built another half a school. And I hope the question is captured correctly, but this is going to be part of the questions that I send in writing. Now, linked to the infrastructure issue is, we know that there hasn't necessarily been consequence management, particularly for some of the the implementing agents, but also officials that make the necessary mistakes in the process of ensuring that we build this infrastructure in schools? Do we have a mechanism put in place as part of the plans and targets for consequence management? And has there been, in the past, an over budget and delayed projects that have been dealt with by the department to ensure that something like this doesn't happen in future? So I want to check on the sound proof of that, because I also saw in the project that there's a decrease in terms of the audit on the internal audit of the department. So it would be interesting if that doesn't affect capacity and ensuring that things like this don't happen. Now, I've mentioned the Rapid School Build program, and I want to ask the minister particularly and the DG, has the department considered similar programs? Have you investigated as to how did the Western Cape build the school in 65 days? And how can that be replicated in other parts of the country, particularly our rural areas where we come from, where there's still asbestos roof? I'll take you to Iti Tabane, the only primary school in Yugi, in that particular area that services that particular area, is still built of asbestos. I mean, the Department of Environmental Affairs even closed down the grade R classes because they were just dangerous for the children. So a school like that can benefit from something like this. Has an investigation been done on how, how many schools, have been built in the Western Cape through that program, and how can that be implemented in the country? And linked with that, how many schools does the department intend to build this year? And which provinces have you identified for those projects, considering that your own program of SAFE and a CD has been expanded? And is there a figure, CFO, that is attached to those projects? Because the major challenge we have in South Africa is a lack of enough good schools, not necessarily that there's space in what are good schools currently that everybody wants to go access. Obviously, as a parent, I want to take my child to Grey High School, but unfortunately, Grey High School has got a limitation of how many children that they can take. So are we intending to build more Grey High Schools that are well run, they've got the infrastructure that they need? And how many of them have identified this year, and which provinces are they? Now, the second last thing on infrastructure, you may know I spoke about it in the House today. Yesterday, I mean, fortunate or unfortunately, visited the family of Langalam Viki, who died in this VIP toilet. And the VIP toilet is basically a pit toilet that went to private school, really. And it's part of the infrastructure norms and standards. And I want to check with the minister, considering that those VIP toilets themselves are actually not safe. They are just pit toilets that went to private school that have got brick and mortar, but ultimately they are pit toilets. Are you considering part of your targets this year to amend the norms and standards to remove VIP pit toilets and look at other means and other technologies of sanitation that can be used in an area whereby maybe there's no reticulation of water and so on? And I ask this deliberately because there's nobody, there's nobody that could even think that they can bury their child at that age. And I, for one, when I was there, just thought of my own son at the bottom of land Lebendi Monapa. It's really, really an untenable situation. And I can remember how I even grew up in Solo. It was even difficult for me to even think of going to the toilet at night because I made a fall in there and I had to go with supervision of my older brother and so on. So it's quite a traumatic experience, more so than anything if your child has to die in that. And I really genuinely believe that there is a way in which we can fast track and rapidly deal with these pit toilets. And there are different technologies that are used across the world that can be safe, that we can use, that are considerable in terms of finances. And I would genuinely like to ask the question from you, Minister, so that we can get an answer. And linking to that, what is the reason for the continued shifting of deadlines when it comes to the eradication of pit toilets? Do we now have a new deadline? I mean, your spokesperson said at some point, I think in January, that the pit toilets should be eradicated by March this year. So I wanted to check, what is the challenge? What is the reason for the shifting of these deadlines? Considering that children could just continue to die in these. And worst of all, even the ones that have been built that are called VIPs, we now have a case of of a child that sadly has died in those. So I wanted to check, I mean, do we have now a set date on that? Or, is there, are we getting rid of them now in the end of March? Can we just get a report as to why the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga failed to spend their full infrastructure budget? We're getting different stories about the 100 million in Eastern Cape, the 314 million in Mpumalanga. And we need to get an understanding as to why those budgets have not been spent, considering that those provinces have got many issues. I even raised one issue in this meeting, and I got a call from an official about Masinagane in Mpumalanga, where a special school converted classrooms into hostels, but they returned 314 million rand. I mean, like really, like I don't know what stupidity or nonsense is that when children and our communities are suffering, and someone say, "I mean, no, there's money. We didn't have time to plan and spend this money." What consequences are being taken for those people? Sometimes we're told to politicize things, but the unfortunate part is that these are realities of people that bring to us on a daily basis. My child has died in a pit toilet. My child is disabled, but has converted a classroom into a hostel, and therefore they can't fully operate in that environment. And then we want to be told about politicization. These are the realities of South Africans. And it's unfortunate because we raise these things in these meetings. People call us on the side, not that, please give me the name of the school. We're going to go there. We're going to do this. Even till date, 2 years later, nothing has been done there, but Mpumalanga is returning money. And I can guarantee you 1,000%, nobody's going to be held accountable there. Because if someone's going to lift up their hands, oh, well, it's not my responsibility. It's the province, not us. But you've got an oversight responsibility as a Department of Education on these provinces. So I would like to know what's going on with those particular two provinces. The Eastern Cape, a child dies, they return 100 million. Mpumalanga, there's still schools that don't have, they still have pit toilets, even themselves, they still have asbestos infrastructure, they are dilapidated, they are not maintained, they return 314 million. Surely there should be an answer for that. Then, linked with that, Minister and DG and the team, how many of the 5,836 schools with unreliable water supply have been identified for maintenance and development this year? And how were they identified to alleviate the challenge of making sure that there's some form of reticulation contributing to toilet sanitary hygiene and other issues in relation to that? And then, what programs will the department implement to properly track and trace learners to mitigate the large number of dropouts? I know there's the Lurid system. I know people always refer to SA SAMs. And is there a way in which we can be able to track those that drop out? But also, I had made a request for those that are exiting in grade 9. Is it part of your targets to kind of track and trace where those learners are, and ultimately those that leave in matric, to kind of measure the success of the system in itself, so that we know where these young people are, so that we don't conflate or inflate our own statistics. Moving to the another part is the curriculum. Regarding the 3-stream model, does the department have a career counseling program? And how is it implemented if it does exist? And how many career counselors does the department employ or contract each year? And how many schools benefit from this? And if not, are you considering to have this? And if you could indicate which grades or age will benefit from that particular expertise. We know that CAP's curriculum is quite content heavy. I know it's been reduced, during the COVID period, but I want to check in terms of the different modalities and pedagogies that exist in the classroom. How will the department lighten the curriculum load to ensure that content is better absorbed by learners and there's an increase of depth? Is there a way in which you're going to monitor quality teaching in the classroom, support quality teaching in the classroom, i.e. by maybe making education assistants permanent to alleviate the admin work, and then measure the performance in the classroom? A child can do a survey at the end of a term about the performance of a teacher, or the depth of understanding. Is there a way in which you're going to assist in terms of the content overload, particularly in the academic streams of things, not necessarily the technical aspect, but that could also form part of it? but the curriculum load, the content, the pace becomes a big challenge for some learners. They learn at different paces, and teachers try to use different modalities and pedagogies. But at the end of the day, there's still that content heavy, and there's a time allocated for work to be completed. So linked to that is kind of monitoring the quality of teaching in the classroom. Is there a way in which you're going to target and measure that particular area? And linked with the question, obviously, is how the department, intends to decrease the mountains of admin of educators so they can get back to teaching. I mean, they teach 12% less time than planned or than intended for the year. So in order to try and optimize on that, do we intend to put as part of the plan, the budget, the targets, a way in which to alleviate that particular pressure? We already know the issues in our schools. We do oversights in these schools, and these questions are informed precisely about that, so that whatever plans we put in place, we know they've got a tangible impact in the classroom for the child, in the school. The communities feel that the education of their children is getting better based on the systems that you put in place as a department. The last time continuous assessment was mentioned in this committee, the department seemed to be quite enthusiastic of the idea. Do we have any progress as part of your plans and targets this financial year in terms of piloting continuous assessment rather than yearly exams? And that's a very specific question, and I hope it's captured as such. Almost 70% of schools do not have libraries. And I remember the last time I was told that, no, our schools, there's 69% of schools that have libraries. I don't know where this 89% comes from. I don't know who was saying this in the last committee meeting. But the reality is that you can't have a small bookshelf in the corner there and say it's a library. And we've done oversights in these schools. A lot of them don't have libraries. And, only 17% of schools that have libraries actually have stock. And this is from your own reports, not us. I mean, the minister likes reminding me of that. These statistics are theirs, not taken from the air. So how is the department addressing this particular issue? Is there a way in which we audit our libraries, whether it's a virtual library, it's a physical library, because we're moving with the times? And is it part of your targets to improve what we know is a big challenge of 8 in every 10 grade 4 children not being able to read for meaning? Currently, how many schools' language policies are under review by the provincial departments? How many of these are single medium schools, and how many of those are Afrikaans, isiXhosa, and isiNdebele, specifically those languages? And what are the reasons for the policy reviews? Because we need to improve our mother tongue education, and we need to see that there's a development of these languages. So it would be interesting to get feedback or to see what targets and plans have been put in place to make that particular improvement. Because, there's a great need for the development of learner and teacher-learner materials in indigenous languages. And what languages have been prioritized, for example, for this? Am I going to learn, as my child, when he gets to grade 1, going to learn his maths in Xhosa that he loves so much? Are you planning to pilot any of these? Because I know Xhosa was piloted at a certain level in grade 12 in the Eastern Cape in 118 schools, if I'm not mistaken. But are there any other languages that have been prioritized that are indigenous to develop a learner material in as part of your own targets as a department, in the aim of making sure that we get quality education and depth in education? I'm going to ask about 3 more questions, Chair. I did say I'm going to be very long because, I indicated to you in private as well that I'll be long because I had to go through these quite in depth. In what way is the department involved in developing a standardized and standardizing, the development of in indigenous languages, so that learners in all the grades can be taught in their mother tongues? Is that part of the plan now? And what specific programs do you have in place to improve learner health and wellness? I mentioned before that we have psychologists and social workers in hotspot areas where violence is prevalent, or we know we've got the socioeconomic ills in our country, poverty and so on. how are staff allocated towards this, and what training do they receive? And is there a plan to implement this, in hotspot areas, considering that LSN schools already struggle with, physicians, they struggle with psychosocial support because, I've been dealing with a case now in the Or Tambo district where a learner hasn't been assessed for the past 3 years and hasn't had place in school and has become suicidal. So there's obviously that element of LSN schools, but also there are an element of schools where they've got behavioral problems and there are hotspot areas based on the socioeconomic conditions of that area. So it would be interesting to see whether there is that as part of the plan. And then the second last one is, what are the red tape reduction units recommendations regarding ECD registration, and how many of the recommendations have been implemented or is in the process of being implemented, which links to the second point on ECD on that. Is there an accountability system for principals? How many pilots have been launched and where are they? So that we are able to track with you in the last 4 quarters. The last question, Chair, is that regarding the enrollment of 6-year-olds in grade R and 5-year-olds in grade RR, the 5-year target is 99%. Is that in grade R at primary schools, or does it include the enrollment in informal education sector? Is there a way in which we do measure that? The rest of the questions I will submit in writing, inclusive of these ones, if they were not clear, but I would like to get feedback and response for that. I'm sorry for being long. I didn't ask the budget questions that I wanted to ask with the specific details and figures that I wanted to question on, based on the fact that we are having a very late meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Principal, thank you. Noted.
Honorable Minister and the DM and Team Basic Education, the Director General, let me take this opportunity to say we welcome the 2 presentations, both on APP and on the finance, the budget part thereof. I let me vow that I'm not going to be as long as Honorable Nodada, because you see, Honorable Nodada, it appears as if he was making another presentation on top of the already given presentation. But in any case, let's appreciate it because that is what was closer to his heart. But nonetheless, let me start right away, Chair, by saying our provision and delivery of quality public education hinges in the main on a number of factors. If we all get it there, and then I think our focus, rather than sometimes many times being so critical, becoming critics to an extent that we end up moving in circles instead of being supportive to the real cause, which will deliver to our children, our nation, our communities, the quality public education. Sometimes we can meander on some of the things which may not even lead us out of the quagmire that really faces us. I'm going to start right away by pointing, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, which I want to bring along. The first one is in addressing the infrastructure backlogs. The presentation year in and year out shows that this is a challenge. I remember the deputy minister at one stage when she rose up and indicated, her colleagues, let us admit, already the issue of the infrastructure, it's like a moving target. Because sometimes when you say you are covering it, new challenges emerge and there comes a fresh need of an infrastructure in a particular settlement or so. But now, however, I think for us to be able to defeat this chair, you see, can we be at one stage, be favored with the breakdown? For an example, now that we are going and being reported on the APP, the breakdown of such backlogs, province by province. Because you see, and once that is done, Chair, it will assist this portfolio committee to constructively advise. Because you see, you might find out that one province is completely having no plan to address such a backlog. Mark you, all these points that I'm going to raise here, basically, it is the responsibility. The policy factor maybe at the DBE level, but the real implementation to see to it that things are done is in the main at the level of provinces. But you will find a strategy differ from one to the other, to such an extent that we will be able to identify where there are challenges, in which province are we having challenges, so that we can be focused in pleading with DPE to get closer and give the necessary assistance. The second point I want to raise is with regard to water and sanitation. The previous speakers referred to it. But you see, I want to be a little bit pragmatic on this one. I think I must repeat. I loved the manner in which KZN was able to address the challenge of water and sanitation. They still have got a presentation on the water station. You seated down, you'll be able to see and get convinced that there is a plan in action. But I want to while understanding very well that provision of water and sanitation might be the competence of municipalities. The question I want to raise to DBE, through you, Chairperson, is what kind of a plan? Of course, Honorable Nodada indicated, and while giving an example of VIP toilets, which also are creating challenges, problem for us. So we do not know where to run to. If we still have got such horrific tragedies, we think a focus will be on them. We just wanted to be able to come to the party and say, we had a backlog and challenges of more than 8,000 if not 2,000. I may not be having those records at my fingertips, but now they were able to say we were able to cover to such now as we are reporting to you, we are remaining with less than 300. You say, can we be able to be exposed on almost all the 9 provinces or the remaining 8 to know the backlog that they had last year and which is now remaining until this time as we speak. You see that we are moving and moving in the right direction. You see, because just a holistic approach with the eradication of pit toilet, that may not be enough until we know province by province how far have they moved and what is the current backlog. The third point I want to raise with regard to the presentation on the APP is with regard to the scholar transport. You see, Chair, my approach will indeed in trying to centralize these challenges is the best way identification where there is need for the necessary intervention. Because if we centralize things and then at the level of GBE, we will forever cry foul on the issue of scholar transport, water and sanitation, and also be able to target and oversight. We will be able to know, Chair, that we are going to target Limpopo, or we are going to target Eastern Cape, because we've realized that they have not moved on almost all the aspects in the provision and delivery of basic education. So the scholar and foreround, I think we're already in the 2nd month of schooling, but if not toward a month, but almost toward the end of a month, when we visited KZN. But there was a special school wherein learners have never set their foot at school because of a simple thing. I think it's in Heriguala, you see, where we were catered for lunch. Learners unable to come to school because of scholar transport. So we are talking about education as being unable to address smaller nyana issues like scholar transport. You see, for certain, at one stage, the minister indicated that, you see, sometimes the provinces have got serious budgetary constraints. But the budgetary constraints should not be given as a reason why learners should not be able to access education. The Constitution
Your network is
very
becoming
clear
so
that there shall be free and compulsory education, and the meaning that are not going to violate that. My network is doing what, Chair? Hello?
Your network is failing you, but you can proceed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, as long as you can hear me. I think I should have arranged with Nodada to sit with him, because he spoke for a long time without network challenges. But in any case, the scholar transport is my greatest worry. Or how are provinces budgeting to such an extent that they fail to deliver scholar transport at the beginning of almost each and every year, as if nothing was planned in that regard. Let me be quick before the network deals with me harshly on the issue
number 4, it will be the issue of dropout. You see, Chair, there is this school of thought which keeps on coming and going, that one of the major challenges we are facing in the provision and delivery of quality public education is that there is a high rate of dropout, which high rate keeps on increasing year in and year out. I think it is about time the department comes to the party by way of bringing or giving to this portfolio committee scientific information rather than just to keep on believing or getting the information which to me might not have been scientifically proven, that indeed the dropout keeps on upping up. And the department, when they come to us, can they also be able to share with us some of the mitigating factors which cause the high rate of dropout, let alone which grades, but the dropout, it's a setback in the provision of our education, and we cannot afford and fold our arms and say it is all systems go and everything it's normal. The last point, Chair, before I fade and die, it's on the ECD. This SONA 2023 SONA was the third, I think I'm correct, the third, but talking subject to correction, wherein the president emphatically showed the importance and the reason why it was necessary to migrate the ECD from social development department to basic education. And it was on the 1st of April last year where we said there is going to be an official function shift. And the 1st of April is another 1st of April is just around the corner. My predecessors, one of them asked a question: is it possible that we can be favored with the successful piloting wherein there was real incorporation in the mainstream education at the level of the DBE? Because you see, Chair, if we lose the battle at the ECD level with reference to grade R, then we must know that we will be building our house on a very poor foundation. I have come to terms with the analysis and conviction which says if we are going to miss it at the ECD level, where our learners will not be properly based, then going forward, that's where we are going to have disadvantages such as dropouts and many other things, because our kids shall have not been properly founded. So it is at the level of this foundation that we must put more efforts, more resources, budget properly to make it a point that our learners are well-founded. Marrying the first item, infrastructure backlog, with the budget, you see there is an increase in the budgetary aspect 2023/24 according to the report, but there is a decrease with the budgetary aspect on infrastructure in 2024 and 2025. But given all these aspects, including infrastructure being a moving target, what informs the decline in the budgeting of infrastructure as anticipated, which to me is in contrast to the normal planning patterns. Our expectation is year in and year out. Our projections must show some increases rather than where we under budget, because we expect a higher deliveries and higher performance, and that can only happen if we have properly budgeted. I think let me pause there before I appear to be giving another presentation. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Advance.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. Let me note and welcome the presentation, the strategic plans of the department, the annual performance plans, and the budget allocations. The report is welcomed. Chair, I really don't want to waste time because I think it has been a very long day for all of us, and members are raising very genuine issues. We're dealing with annual plans, and Chair, I would want to make a proposal that some of the issues that were raised, for instance, the issue of infrastructure, water and sanitation, scholar transport, and so forth, that we have specific presentations, that are detailed, that will even outline province by province, even district by district, all these issues that we're raising today, because we don't want just to get responses or answers. Would want to see the impact that we would want to make as a committee in resolving most of the issues that are raised by committee members as we are representing people on the ground. So, Chair, I would humbly plead with you that we make our program, maybe the second term program, be aligned to these issues that are raised here. It will assist us, Chairperson, to really our oversight as members of Parliament, and also try to assist the department with our advices, and maybe some of our ideas that we might come with, because we are facing people on a daily basis on the ground. Some of the challenges that we recorded during the public hearings, so I strongly believe that having those presentations, that are detailed, so that when we engage on them, we're not only going to receive, answers, we are going to get solutions. For instance, the issue of scholar transport, how it is handled in different provinces. We must understand what is working where. You'll be told that in a province A, scholar transport has been done in the Department of Basic Education, or education in particular. In other provinces, you'll be told that it's under transport, or whatever the case may be. So I think if we want to really make an impact, is to tackle all these issues one by one, package them in such a way that we're going to, resolve them, as the committee and also as the department of basic education. So, Chair, let me not dwell into specifics, but on the issue of the budget, Chair, I would just want to ask one question. If this budget allocation, is it really addressing, the challenges that the department is faced with? Is it really going to make impact in reaching all the targets that they have set for themselves? Chair, let me not go on and on. Let me pause there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Sukeras, do you really want to come back?
Yes, Chair, I just left out 3 questions that I would like to be on the record, Chair.
Can you then raise them quickly?
Chair, thank you. I just need, I think I mentioned it earlier, what is the turnaround on providing answers to the members of the committee, asked in the committee? And what is the turnaround on providing answers to members' written questions, like the questions that I and some other members has now indicated that we would give to the department based on the time? And then also to know whether the department keeps a log of the questions being asked by the committee. And then I just have 2 more, which is, has the department set benchmarks and how has the department performed against those benchmarks? Lastly, Chair, I want to go back to the issue of the closure of schools. The department had a deadline for online schools, which was in October last year, a self-imposed deadline, which they have missed. And the WCED, Western Cape Education Department, has rejected the framework of the DBE for school closures because it was not researched and has placed a moratorium on all the school closures in the Western Cape until they have proper research. The question that I have to the minister is the minister willing to advocate for the same in the other 8 provinces, given the fact of the reasons as provided by the WCED? No research that has been done on the closure of schools and the issues that was highlighted in this committee prior on the issue of school closures. Thank you, Chair. I will stop there and just add that the nutrition program is 1/3 of the budget, if we can get a report on the impact of that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable Mokhota.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to ask a few questions to the Minister. I'll start with my first question. Minister, why do we still have a high rate of Funza Lushaka graduates who have not been placed at schools in order to alleviate the workload of educators? And can you please state the time frame when all these Funza Lushaka graduates are going to be placed? And then the next one is, how does the department plan to reduce overcrowding in most of the rural and township schools? And can you please give the time frame thereof? And on page 48, it is that on program 1, under program 1 administration, it is said that number of reports on misconduct cases resolved within 90 days. Reporting cycle is, it's not clear to me, but I'm assuming that on the reporting cycle quarterly, and then target is 4, because this information is based on financial year 2023 to 2024. So I would like to know what was the total number of reported misconduct cases? And the target there is written 4, from which maybe if I say from which schools, it will be a very long list. From which provinces did the department arrive to this target of 4, which maybe the department has achieved? Because we have 9 provinces, we have many districts, we have many schools, and we do have many learners, who are involved in misconduct, and we also have teachers who are involved in misconduct. So in this case, it is not clear as to whether the misconduct cases that are referred to here are referred to learners or they are referred to educators. And then the next question, still on program 1, page 48, it is stated that the number of capacity building programs offered to the Department of Education officials. I was just wondering, asking myself, are you referring to the principals? Are you referring to the HODs? Are you referring to the subject advisors or to the circuit managers? And then under reporting cycle, we are having there annually. So, and I assume that on annual basis, the target achieved during this period, 2023 to 2024, was 15. If that is the case, I'm worried because we have 9 provinces. Actually, can you please elaborate on this 15? At least, give us how many officials were capacitated in the Department of Education per province, at least, if not per district, in each and every province. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mokgoto, and all members that have raised issues to the department. It's too late now. It's almost 12 o'clock. And I think my questions I'd rather send them in writing to the department because of time. And let me allow you, Ma Angie, to. Are you still awake, Ma?
No, I'm up, Chair. I'm very much awake.
Sorry, man. We are holding everyone now, ransom.
I know, and I have to catch the 6 o'clock flight tomorrow.
But it's because of you guys. It's because of you. So it's because of you. Okay, Ma, you can respond.
No, thanks, Chair. No, Chair. Again, now I would really want to say, let me not answer all questions. Just answer broadly on principle, and would maybe suggest that we get some of the questions in writing. But I think I have to clear some of the matters, Chair, if you don't mind. But I won't be answering to specific questions. I mean, the first difficulty, Chair, we're presenting a budget to you according to the guidelines. And the questions that rightfully so that members have interest in are things that are in the business plan of all the branches. What are the language policies? What are the attrition, repetition rates? We can give those figures, but I think what we need to do, I might suggest that maybe next time is to get a whole day's workshop so that we can tell you that now that we're talking about teacher development, this is what informs it, this is where we come from. But I think in this platform and the format of Parliament, we were capable of doing them. For instance, if you want information about where are we with sanitation, I can assure you, Chair, every Friday, 7 o'clock, we have an infrastructure meeting. By this Friday, at about 10 p.m., we will give you a weekly updated information on infrastructure. So that committee members should really know that we are ready to answer most of the questions that they raise with us. You want information on scholar transport, We monitor it regularly, monthly. We'll tell you which province has shortfall, which one has is transported, so that maybe some of the information you meet when you visit to provinces, you can assume, Chair, correctly assume that we have the information. Some of the questions you raise, for instance, like Member Sukers wants to know about what informs the closure of schools. The closure of schools, some of the things are informed by existing policies that we say this is what a viable school would look like. Anything except for that will be a candidate for closure. So we don't have to repeat school by school, we're closing it because of the following. It's informed by existing policy. And other things that you want us, I think, again, that's why I say we need a day check. Some of the things are not measurable. So it's not, we are, and I want to really not to sound defensive. We're not unthinking ourselves. You can assume that, like yourselves, some of the things that we do, we try as much as possible to apply our minds to them. For instance, on teenage pregnancy, because Member Suke says I should take money for comprehensive sexuality education to school nutrition. I mean, really? Because I can't measure how many kids will not be pregnant. It's like a priest who goes to church and say, I'll have a session every morning, I'll give Bibles, and what the inputs are. And to expect her to say by the end of the year, I will have so many people having accepted Jesus as their savior. It's a social process. It's not measurable. But it's the inputs that you put in based on experience, which tell you what are the outcomes that are going to come. So social behavior sometimes is not measurable. That if we feed children, that we feed 1 meal a day, we can say by the end of the would have reversed. It's an emotional issue. So the thing, but they can't have an outcome as if it's government to say, I'll bring 5 meters of material, produce 10 dresses, and some of them are not measurable. So just to close is to say, I would really appreciate when members can send us questions, but I think also in all fairness, with due respect, Chair, the committee members should also inform themselves broadly about the work that we do by reading documents in the department. Because it would mean next time when we come to you, we must bring you business plans branch by branch. What are we doing along language policy? Where are we getting? Because the reports are there. And it's for members sometimes to familiarize themselves so that the oversight of the committee cannot only be reliant on the inputs of what we give them. And lastly, with all respects, and it also will help because I'm glad that member note that raises this issue. I thought he will also be, maybe TM will talk to it because she's responsible for infrastructure. She will also be, because it's disingenuous for him to have gone to a school, create a picture that is not aware that there's also controversy about how the child drowned, whether she went into the pit latrine alive or she was dumped there. It's a police matter. And you can't be talking about it because there are investigations, but there are suspicions, and she knows it. And she goes and politicizes and play off. And then we're expected ourselves as government to be insensitive and talk about the child's death in public and say what he's saying is not true. So the parents have to hear us in Parliament debating an issue that we both have information, and he spreads around this information, which I find it very regrettable from a member of a committee who could have requested proper information. And fortunately, when he knows what the truth is, but for political reasons, he politicized a very sad issue. And as government, we are constrained by ethics that we cannot go in public and be debating a child's death because another member of a political party, in particular of the committee, is spreading disinformation. But Chair, ask us any question. Our work is to monitor, we'll give you reports. But I thought, as the whip was saying, we're presenting a budget. But if you want figures, we'll give you business plans. But also request you to, also when you ask us questions that you are interested in so that we're able to supply you with information that you want. but not perhaps only this occasion when we're giving a budget, you ask us about the whole work of the department, which we are willing to answer to you. But secondly, I wish to really humbly advise you also to familiarize yourselves with the business plans of the department so that we are on the same page. Because I think sometimes we really don't find enough time to talk. As a result, there's information gap between ourselves and yourselves, and undertake. Send me anytime. You want infrastructure update, we'll give you weekly. You want squatter transport, how far we are, we'll give you even tomorrow. But we thought we were presenting a budget, and if the information on the budget is not adequate, again, we're willing to come back, maybe outside the budget process to take, and maybe a workshop to take members through our entire business plan so that we close information gaps. But thank you very much, Chair, for the engagement, and thanks for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Chair.
Who must speak now? DM, Minister said something about infrastructure.
Chair, yeah, Minister was just, thank you so much, and greetings to all the honorable members, and greetings to you, Chairperson, Minister, and the departmental officials. I'm speaking for the first time since we started this meeting, that I have to greet everybody, and the officials, of course, of the Portfolio Committee. Chair, Minister was just setting an example. She indicated that not to say that the department is insensitive. We report all the time to the Portfolio Committee, but the Portfolio Committee knows the budget of the department on infrastructure. The Portfolio Committee knows almost everything. That's why sometimes, Chair, you used to even invite us with the provinces to come and account. And we report all the time on SAFE and ACID to the Portfolio Committee. So it's just that sometimes when we ask questions, it's like we are not, I don't know, we are not together. Yet we know our budget is approved, it's recommended by the Portfolio Committee and to Parliament, and is approved by Parliament, the budget of the department. So we may not have all the resources to eradicate pit latrines at once. That is not possible. I don't know, maybe it may be possible, but not now, from the limited resources the government has. So on that note, we're not saying that the department does not have a plan to eradicate, but eradication, we are even afraid to report as in eradication. But we are doing away with pit latrines. And it's very few schools. It's just that out of 100 schools, if 2 still have pit latrines, then it becomes so glaring, as if, and we overemphasize it as if it's 98 schools that are pit latrines and 2 that have waterborne, or this new system that we're using now. So I'm saying, Minister indicated that we meet every Friday. If the Portfolio Committee will want to know the statistics, we always we are here to present the plan, the annual plan, annual performance plan. And some of the questions they ask as if we're presenting the annual report. I liked one question from Honorable Member, I forgot, who said, is the budget sufficient for the priorities of the department? And that one, you can see that is really addressing the APP. But many questions were addressing the annual report. We're not addressing this APP that was presented today. So, but on all the statistical questions on the annual report and the report of the department, Minister is correct. Let's get them in writing so that we cannot now thumbsuck statistics and say, yeah, We have so many, and some questions, like Honorable noted, there was how, and tell us how many, and tell us how and what. It really, they need to come in writing so that we can elaborate on most of the things that is said. Unless there are specific questions which members would love to know, especially that one of the budget. The budget is not, will never be sufficient, it's not sufficient. We have so many priorities, and this new priority of early childhood development that we have just inherited tells that we need more money, because when you look at access, the access to early childhood development, we owe about 3 point something million learners who have not yet accessed ECT. And as a sector, we just received it food steward from social development, which we're working with NPOs and centers and this. So when it is in education, the doors of education shall be open for all. So which means now we must look at the access of all the 5 million, 0 to 5, in terms of the Stats SA. So it needs more resources, which the portfolio committee must help us try to get some of those resources for the access. I'm responding to that one question, which I believe that was spot on the budget itself, and many other things that we have. Chair, may I request that, I don't know, if I have energy, and I think Minister, where she's sitting, she has energy, we have energy, but we're traveling, of course, in the morning, but we have energy. So if we want to take specific questions, it will go up to 3 o'clock. Why don't members, like Honorable Sukar said that she was asking for record, that we record all this, then we'll bring them in writing, Chair, to the members, if that will be acceptable to you. Thank you.
DM. Comment DM. DJ, your hand is up. Do you want to respond, or are you bringing a suggestion also?
No, sorry, Chair. I don't like speaking after the Minister and DM. I also want to humbly request that we respond in writing, given the constraints of time. But I must indicate many of the questions that have been asked, we have responded to before, maybe not in the manner that members were satisfied. For instance, Honorable Sukers is right. She's not asked the question about outcomes and impact for the first time. But my response to that question will be consistent to the response that I offered before. As the Minister indicated, planning, monitoring, and reporting templates are determined by the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation for the entire government. There is no way that DBE can have a separate template or methodology of planning and reporting. And the issues of inputs and outputs are what the framework requires us to do. My proposal to Honorable Sukers was that we engage the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The point that she's making is a very important point, that we need to measure impact, we need to measure outcomes, but the entire government follows the same template. There was an issue about the figures of cases of misconduct. We're talking about DBE officials at head office only, because this budget is in the main about activities when it comes to human resources of DBE officials at head office. That's why the numbers appear to be small. They don't include school principals, teachers. They're accounted for at provincial level. So, Chair, in short, if you accept the proposal given by the minister. And by the way, I have pleaded with the committee to allow us to come and present on dropout rate. That presentation is ready. I've humbly requested the committee to allow us to come and present. So there was an issue raised about dropout rate. We are ready to come and present on that as well, including the other issues that the minister talked about on learner transport, so that we come and explain exactly what is happening, what percentage has been covered, why are some of the learners not covered in learner transport, what are the inefficiencies, what plans do we have to deal with inefficiencies, and give you that information per province. The same applies to infrastructure. In all our APPs, infrastructure targets are there. We've been reporting to the committee every year. 2021, 2022 was the first year where we exceeded all the targets. We will be reporting on 2022, 2023. I've indicated to the minister that I'm in KZN. We're working in KZN today, monitoring particularly the SAFE program. Whilst Honorable Nodada and other members have raised the issue of the safety of even the VIP toilets, the toilets that we've been monitoring for the past 2 to 3 years are safe, 100% safe. There are those that were built a while ago, I agree. The cylinder or the circumference of the funnel that leads to the pit is too big, it's unsafe, and we are looking at that and addressing it. It is true it was raised by the minister, but that does not apply to the current toilets that we are putting in. And the last point, Chair, just to correct, what we are constructing in areas where there's no running water is appropriate and safe dry sanitation, which means it's a pit. Pits will always be there where there's no running water. And South Africa is one of the 20 countries which experience scarcity of water. And therefore, many parts of our country do not have running water to have waterborne facilities. I just thought I must just provide that clarity, but you are going to respond comprehensively. I must apologize to Honorable Sukers. She says that we've not responded to her answer. Usually she would call me or even drop me a message and say, I have asked this, I've requested for this, you have not responded. But I'll follow up with Mr. Mahada and also just confirm with Honorable Suker so that we respond to all the questions. It's our duty to do so. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Members. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, DM, and DG. Notada, do you want to still speak?
Yes, Chair, I think we can accept the proposal. I mean, I'm rising to, as one of the members, to accept the proposal to get things in writing. But I do want to say and raise a concern with you, Chair, particularly. We ask questions here as part of our oversight responsibility. We've got our own research teams. We do our own research. We cannot have ministers and deputy ministers telling us how to ask questions. In fact, that type of behavior, Chair, must be completely stopped immediately. If people can't listen to how we ask questions and what we ask, and they make their own presumptions, they need to come back and ask. If we're asking questions, we're basing it on the APP and the budget that has been asked. And it cannot be that minister comes here and insults me, in fact, that I'm lying about a family I visited myself yesterday who asked for my help, that gave a full detailed story of what is going on there. If we wanted to politicize things, Minister, trust me, believe you me, we can politicize things. But we are raising issues here that you and your department need to resolve. only thing I'm hearing here is excuses left, right, and center. Why this can't be done? There's a budget problem there, this and that. There's not even an acknowledgement of any of the issues that have been raised by different members, including members from your own party, by the way, to say that there's a problem here. We acknowledge there's an issue. Let's try to see how do we find each other on the solutions. But all we're getting is an insults and didn't read this, there's a business plan, we must have a workshop and all of that. We're not stupid by being here. We know the process of parliament and we ask questions, we do the research. Take the questions we ask with the spirit that it deserves. We're not here to politicize issues. We're here to take up issues that people raise with us. We're not here by chance. We're elected to be here. And it's not by mistake that people consult us to come and take up their issues. So let us not, please, Chair, be insulted as members of parliament who've got an oversight responsibility that we need to play. But if we're called into that arena, we will come to that arena. But for now, we're asking questions genuinely because we want to see how do we best contribute to the department's APP, their plans, so that it's not a box-ticking exercise, but it's got tangible impact on the ground. If our questions are misunderstood or not acknowledged the way in which they need to be acknowledged, then people must seek clarity. They must not make an assumption that we're asking things for the sake of asking them. So I really take great offense to that, Chair, because we do our due diligence to do research and see how can we best make a meaningful contribution in the process of making sure that our children, because we've got children ourselves, get the best education out of this. So it's quite disappointing to hear the responses that we got from the two political heads of the department. It's really abusive, honestly speaking.
Honorable Mogoto.
Thank you, Chairperson. Without wasting any time, I would like to concur with Honorable Nodata. When we ask questions about issues that affect our communities, we expect answers. Nobody must tell us how to ask such questions. Thank you.
Honorable Adwans.
No, Chairperson, you know, earlier I made a proposal that let's all this thing be packaged and have specific programs be dealt with, like I made a reference to the scholar transport. I think maybe it's oversight that maybe you did not speak to that. Because now this is abuse, to be honest. As much as members, you know, don't want Minister and DM to respond to them in a certain way, you know, I think they also have a right to also respond and guide this meeting, because what I've heard and what I've, you know, taken from their responses is that where to look for some of the answers. Hence, I said earlier, we don't just want answers. We want such challenges be resolved. So as much as we don't want to be answered in a certain way and feel that we are insulted, we must also take some of the advices that we're given. So, Chair, I humbly request that some of the presentation, the programs that are very, very problematic and are very concerning, like your infrastructure, your scholar transport, pit latrine toilets, you name them. Can we get specific presentation be given to us? We requested to be given a presentation on STEM subjects. It was given to us. And at least we are satisfied and we're able also to resolve some of the challenges that we felt our input will also assist. So can you also do the same? Because sitting here insulting each other at 1:45 is not going to assist us. Thank you, Chair.
Minister?
Chair, I really want to apologize for coming back. And I would not do it if I didn't think that I will not be able to sleep if I don't tell member not that he must bring it on. I am not going to also come to meetings and be abused by opposition who create an impression that also some of us as politicians, the respect should be mutual and equally abused by his attitude and regime. Bring it on, Babunotad. I don't want to say much. There are officials from the department, but I can say bring it on. I'm not going to be abused by members of the opposition, never.
Let us agree that myself and other members that have got additional questions, we are going to forward those questions to Mr. Brown, and then they are going to be sent to the department, and we will await the responses that are going to come from the department. We can't do further than that. It's 12:12 now, and we are in load shedding, some of us already. We unfortunately had to have this meeting tonight because Parliament is closing next week. And next week we are anticipating to have both entities to come and present their budget too, so that when we close, we know we have dealt with the department's budget and its entities. When we come back, we are going to look into the program and the proposal of specifics, your infrastructure, scholar transport, ECD, a lot of other issues. We are going to try to incorporate them in the program of the next quarter, so that we also deal with those issues. I want to say that we are in a political space, and we hope that the emotions by next week would have gone down. It happens, and it will happen because we are not going to necessarily agree on many issues. But unfortunately, we work together, and we are supposed to be working together because our interest at the end of the day is a school, or rather is a learning environment. I'm tempted to say, let us close the meeting now. Let us adjourn it. With that directive, we are going to meet next week, which is going to be the last meeting for the quarter. I'm not going to be in that meeting because we've got a chairperson's workshop. So Honorable Adwans will be dealing with will be chairing the meeting for the next week. So with those words, thank you very much to everybody. I sincerely again apologize that we had to hold you till 12:15. Now it's actually now the next day, but as you understand, we just had to hold you till this time. It does not necessarily really happen with our committee, but I'm sure you understand that we needed to do it. Sincere apologies from my side to your side, but at least the mission is accomplished, and I think that's what is important. Honorable Jones, your hand is up.
Sorry, Chair, it's a legacy hands, my apology.
Oh, okay. Oh, so like I was saying that I do apologize to the department to the members and everybody that has joined our meeting. But we are done, we are done with the budget presentation of the department. We're looking forward to the entities next week, Tuesday. So with those words, good night, or rather good morning. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
No,
Good
thank you.
morning. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah,
Good
good
morning.
Yeah, good something. Hey. Yo.
Good something. You can see that again.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yo.